is on leadership and expertise, or how to lever other competencies and added value than your expertise. I am so happy to have an amazing panel today that will share their views and insights and tools and tips on this topic. But before we give them the floor, some small housekeeping rules. If you are watching this video or lab live, then you are invited to participate and to send us your feedback and your questions through the chat. So just to make sure that you can hear us and that you can see us okay, please put something in the chat. Let us know where you're from, how the weather is, what you're expecting from today. So we are sure that you are all in a good position to learn as much as possible from this lab. If you are watching the recording of this leadership lab, then you can still participate in the chat, because whatever you put there as a question or a feedback, you will send us an email so we can deal with it within 24 hours. And live participants and recording viewers can also get some very interesting giveaways that we have provided for you at the end of the Leadership Lab. So even if you're not watching live, if you watch the recording, you can still apply for the giveaways at the end of this webinar. So you have all the reasons to stay until the end. So welcome. Let's check the chat, because apparently... Okay, so I see Marleen from Belgium. Okay, very nice. So Erna, good afternoon. So I guess people can hear and see us. The chat is working, so we can start. So let's introduce our 4 panelists. Who wants to start? Please take the floor.
Shall I start?
Yes, of course. Thank you, Monique.
Okay. Yes, my name is Monique Jansen. I'm Dutch originally, and I'm based in Madrid, Spain now, where I am partner and consultant in a niche consultancy. It's called Bullion and Partners, and we dedicate our lives to transforming companies from product or service centric to customer centric. So it's about customer centricity. There's a lot of things in customer centricity that are affected if you want to focus more on the customer management level, leadership level, but also processes, technology, talent. So we follow all these aspects through with our customers, and we can help them through either consultancy, coaching, mentoring, training on all of these areas. And help them make the transformation real. And happy to be on your panel, Helena.
Happy to have you here, Monique. Thanks so much. Anna, can you go next?
Sure. It's lovely to be here. Thank you, Helena. My name is Anna, and I'm a co-founder and a managing partner of a boutique consultancy in Brussels. I'm working a lot on with individuals and helping individuals align their personal and professional vision, as well as, especially in today's world and thinking of the future, helping people to develop a change mindset that will set them up for the environment that we are already experiencing, where change is happening at an ever more increased and exponential rate and speed. And so that we are able to actually thrive and not only survive the change, but actually drive it and make it happen ourselves. And similarly, I'm working with organizations to help them develop approaches that allow them to become more agile and to actually drive and shape change at a systemic level as well.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Anna. Claudia, please.
Hello there. Lovely to be in this room. Thank you, Helena, for the invitation. My name is Claudia, and I'm German. I'm living in London since many, many years, so we're all international, spending lots of time overseas. My background is luxury hospitality, yet what I do now, I founded a company called Soul Luxury, and what we do is in simple terms, we put soul into the experience, but that goes much further. We also educate the community to understand about what actually does this shift, what we're talking about, that transformation, why is it, what happens from an evolutionary context, because lives are not only changing, they're actually transforming, and why. and what does it mean for the individual. So we are looking into that. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Samir, please.
Hi, my name is Samir. It's a pleasure to be here amongst the esteemed panelists. And thank you, Helena, not only for today, but also for building a community of like-minded people, which I think is the most precious thing. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Blue Ocean Global Technology. But I would say first and foremost, I live my life by what Churchill said, and that's we make a living by what we get and a life by what we give. And I think relationships in life, the more you give, the more you receive. And we try to do that as a company, giving the gift of education, speaking at events domestically in the United States as well as internationally, with a focus on digital presence. How do you build, monitor, and repair your digital presence? And a common theme, I think, today is change amongst all of us panelists, and how do you adapt? And I always tell clients, if you don't like change, you'll like irrelevance even less. So change is definitely going to be happening, and we need to make sure that we take advantage of it and use it to be more effective. And, today there's just choice overload with where do you produce an online reputation? You have social media, you have content, you have Google search. But there's also just choice overload in where we spend our time. We still have like our in-person lives with so many people, and their demands there. And every time you pick up the phone, there's a plethora of distractions. So I think anytime you can assemble a group of people that is kind of filtered through someone like Helena, who puts a great deal of heart into making sure she gets to know all the members, I feel fortunate to be here and excited about making new friends.
Great, thank you so much, Samir. So basically, the reason I picked this topic is in my coaching work with clients, expertise is often seen by my clients as their main justification or legitimation for their leadership. Recently, I had this client that was managing a team of 4 for many years, and she was really happy in that position, and she was feeling very comfortable because actually everything that her team members did, she could do herself. So she was very feeling very safe in terms of whenever there were questions from the team, whenever there was a problem, whenever things needed to get more support or getting more traction, she could do it herself. Recently, she was promoted, and now she's managing a team of 40 people all over the world, different departments, and some of the departments, she doesn't get a clue what it is about. Now, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but anyway, she felt very, very insecure in taking on that position because she felt that because she did not manage the technicalities and the job contents of the people that she was supervising, she felt she was not entitled to lead them. And so it took like 2 sessions in order to get there. And I'm not going to disclose here where we got, but we might have some of the things coming up in this panel. So my question to you as a panel, and also to you as an audience, is how does that resonate to you from your own experience or from experience with clients or with people in your surroundings? How does this resonate?
If I may start, I also work a lot with a recruitment agency. Working closely with people that either apply for new positions or that, are being approached and then discussing different opportunities. I think the approach where you link your value to your potential employer to the concrete expertise rather than, your soft skills in being able to empower other people and to drive the team is a common difficulty in these conversations, especially when it comes to more senior roles. But it is also very much linked to the work that I do on change mindset, which is about understanding that we have different roles in our professional and personal life, and that we can draw on our skills as needed in order to thrive in different contexts. So I think it is a very common and repeating situation, I would say, that I also face in speaking to professionals from across different industries. Now, it does take a moment, but very often when actually realizing that we do have different roles in our lives, and that we can draw on a number of skills that we often do not realize we possess because we tend to view ourselves in silos, either as a professional, either as a parent, for example, or, a sports addict, whatever it may be. We would not think that we actually have a very broad skill set that we can use in different contexts as well. And that realization often comes in very helpful when people think about how they can make that next step.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And I would like to add something, and please allow yourself to just contemplate about the words I'm saying, because it may not be immediately easily to accept. But in this space we are in, and we are talking all about change, I believe that this is not only about change we are experiencing, we are experiencing a humankind transformation. And in that space of total transformation, knowledge of the mind only is limiting, because what happens yesterday is no tomorrow. So the knowledge alone will not be the success of the future. So if knowledge is not the intrinsic value anymore, what is it, you may ask, and quite rightly so. And the answer to that, it is your deep understanding, your wisdom. You feel something, and when the moment you feel something, you can then articulate it, and you can move as a leader forward with that deeper understanding.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I just wanted to add, I think the problem that or the case you described is very common. I see it also happening, but to be honest, I think that if you look at the leadership role, what it should do at any levels, company leaders, group leaders, team leaders, you leading your own family, is that the principal task, in my point of view, is being the guardian of the values, the common agreed values, and making sure that people get continuously inspired, motivated in order to do what they need to do. But on the other hand, I also see, and especially you see that in companies or teams with young people, that they also need theoretical guidance examples. It's very helpful if a leader can sometimes do a master class, and then people get motivated by that and get some more inspiration, more knowledge. So there might be circumstances where but it really depends on the team, where knowledge is important and experience is important. But from a leadership perspective, I would say it's actually the least important factor. More important is being the guardian of the values and motivating and enabling others.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I would just add that I think experience it's always relative. And I've had places where I've, been in meetings or I've been presenting, and there are people that are more than double my age, and they ask me, well, how many years of experience do you have? And one of the first things I always say to them is, many people have had the same year of experience, 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years in a row. And I think ultimately the quality of the experience is going to differentiate. And I think that study of different disciplines allows you to make more informed decisions. I think Charles Munger, who's Warren Buffett's partner, calls that like a lattice work of mental models. So when you have understandings of different disciplines, be it emotional intelligence and psychology, which are so important to being able to build relationships and get the most out of others that work with you, and also be able to maybe deliver information to those that are senior without offending or having someone feel insecure. Those are really important skills that oftentimes are overlooked. So finding yourself in a culture that supports you cultivating those, as well as you being a part of that, I think is foundational to your life opportunity set.
Yeah.
If I can add, sorry, I just wanted to say, because that links to what we have been discussing, is that I think very often in companies still we see leadership roles as sort of a natural continuum if someone, earns certain seniority in a specific role. Whereas I think it is really crucial to also realize that those that are on track for leadership positions, whether it happens in 2 years' time or in 5 years' time, should also be indeed trained and should go through a path understanding that it is much more than just expertise that is needed. We need to develop emotional intelligence. It is about how we work with people, because there is a huge difference between being a very good manager and becoming a very good leader. And
Absolutely.
not everyone, is set to become a leader. Some people are essentially at best when they are in their expert role, not when leading teams and when, in positions where they should inspire and drive others. And that's also okay. There should be no stigma around those that are not willing to become leaders, that just want to be, great experts in what they do.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, if you look at the leadership models, they have evolved over the centuries because like in the 60s and in the 70s, and I sometimes encounter leaders that are still in that modus, the leader was supposed to know it all. So expertise was a very, very important feature in leadership. Nowadays, we talk about shared leadership. We talk about participative leadership because a leader is not supposed to know everything. He doesn't need to know all the answers. And it is like Claudia already said, the world is changing so much. It is impossible to keep up with expertise and with technicalities. The thing is that a lot of people have a challenge in replacing or adding other competencies to their leadership role than expertise. So how can you help them investigate and look what added value they can bring beyond expertise?
I think to add to what you said, Helena, I think we need to become very aware that the hierarchy in the world is actually changing. We used to have that hierarchy from the top down, and actually that was an easy way to follow because you knew what you were to do. Even as a leader, you had actually quite limited space to be that leader. And then we moved into authentic leadership. But now we are in the Aquarian age where everything is flat. And we need to be mindful that the structures in businesses are falling apart. If you think about, cryptocurrency, blockchain, etc., there is no structure anymore. And all these developments are actually having an impact on leadership because there is no tangible. Everything becomes intangible. So what becomes tangible is actually who we are being and our own self-understanding in the world and how we need to go about addressing our own role as leaders. So it's coming to be very precise in terms of answering your question, Helena, I think the value as a leader is the more you know yourself, the more you can actually become that leader of essence in that new world. Mm-hmm. And that means different things to different people because we are all unique. And that's why there is no blueprint anymore, as I see it.
Yeah. Somebody wants to build on that?
I agree with what has been said indeed. And I think what we could reflect upon is, if we imagine what the world is already looking like, but definitely will look like in the future with continuous exponential change, which essentially means, as the philosopher and historian Yuval Harari mentioned, we think about change in the future using concepts that are valid for our current state. But most probably, what we will witness is not going to be one big disruptive change and then the new status quo, but continuous change, which means that it will physically be impossible to be an expert on everything. At the same time, the focus on how we can actually bring in additional values into inspiring people, influencing people as well, will become much more important. And that is not a new concept. I mean, if you think, years back, we've already had the famous quote that people will most probably not remember, what you did or how you did it particularly, but actually how you made them feel. It links very nicely to the importance of building relationships and building impactful relationships so that you give value to others, you empower others, and that's how you can drive your leadership position as well, by engaging with other people.
Mm-hmm. I think it's very important what you just said on empowerment, because if you give people the trust and empower them to make decisions however they feel it's needed, or they develop new products and services however they feel it's adding value to the business and to the customers, there is absolutely no need to, on a quality level, on a detail level, to be there for these persons, because they will have other peers that they see as their influences on a technical stance. Yeah, so and this is important also as a leader to understand that if you are taking your leadership role as being an influencer, being an enabler, you have to make sure that your people do have other resources, even if it's not you, that they can take technical knowledge and technical inspiration from. But you don't have to be the person to give that. There can be other people who mentor others, and it doesn't have to be the leader.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. Okay.
I think women are better at this than men, but I think using your ears and mouth proportionately always helps. So if you want to gain more influence and affluence within your organization, I think talking and asking your colleagues, be that juniors or seniors, about the challenges they're experiencing and what they're working on, and that can give you a little bit of insight into some of the areas that you may be able to help them. Then you can go back and maybe learn and work on that. And then when you become a resource for other people accomplishing more, naturally, they're going to think of you in the future. So I think that we learn a lot more by listening. When we talk, we share what we already know. And when we have enough discipline to be quiet and let somebody share what's really bothering them, you can learn a lot about someone personally, professionally.
Okay.
I also think, just wanted to add one thing, if possible, I think we're all talking about how indeed we live in this connected world where, people have different roles, where we sort of build on collective intelligence of different groups or different industries. I mean, if you look what's happening also with Innovation 2.0, all built on the quadruple helix model, which essentially means we're bringing together the expertise from the private sector, the public sector, the academia, as well as simply the social aspect, the citizens or individuals. It makes us realize that we're very often facing today issues that are much bigger than an individual company or an individual person can actually, come up with a solution to. And that translates very nicely also to organizations, whether it's private sector or public sector, showing that, we live in a connected dimension, in a connected world where it is much more beneficial to the organizations and to the individuals to be working with others across teams, across industries maybe, to come up with solutions that then benefit the broader society.
Yeah.
If I may add, and I totally agree, Anna, I think one skill which is really important in that new space is collaboration. And not everybody is actually good at collaborating because people often don't understand what it actually means. Deep collaboration is working in harmony. So there is no win-win. There is actually creating something for the good of that aim. And that is quite a complex, complex model, because in business we are trained competition, watch out and compare and whatever. And suddenly we are asking to collaborate and share and trust and all sorts of, of values, inverted commas, which when you consider 20 years ago were no-go. So there is a total shift, and before we can trust others, we need to trust ourselves first. And if we are really honest, not how often can we truly say, I can trust myself? Because, we have also fears of rejection, etc. So there's a completely new dynamic which comes into that leadership of the future. And I wouldn't even want to say leadership of the future. It actually has already arrived. So it is what it is happening now. However, we need to create an understanding what it means for us individually.
Absolutely. Claudia, thank you for mentioning that, because I also think that basically your expertise is the easiest thing you can rely on if you want to trust yourself. Yes. Between brackets, your expertise is something like tangible. It's easy to refer to. Other competencies are a lot more difficult. If I may, I see a question from Jean. Hi, Jean. I hope you're fine. If it's okay, Jean, I would love to bring you into the room, if that's okay for you. So if you would like to, you can just push the hand near the chat box. I hope you see what I mean. And you do a request for speaking then, and then I can allow you into the room for your question. If you don't, I just try to translate your question, because I'm not sure to understand, but there you are. I knew you would do that. So I will give you access to the room, and I hope this works, because I've never done that before. Apparently, it might take some time, or it didn't work. Let's give it some. Can you try that again, Jean? Let's see what happens if he gets in. But Jean asks if the value that you are, isn't the value you are in a position to contribute is based on the breadth and the depth of your network. I think this is already something that was discussed a little bit. So how do you see that? The development of your network as a lever for your leadership?
I mean, I think that, everything is around. Oh, I think Jean has joined us.
Yes, it works.
Jean is in the room. Oh, great.
Hello, Jean.
Hi, Jean.
Hi, Jean.
Can you probably, oh, there he is.
Yes.
We can't hear you, Jean. You have to put on your, you have to unmute yourself.
Is that better?
This
Yes.
is great.
Yeah.
Welcome, Jean.
Welcome, all.
Hello.
This is sort of unexpected, but whatever. I can relate to the discussion quite well, because I remember the pain associated from moving from a situation where I could, in fact, do the job of everyone that I was responsible for, to being in a position where I couldn't actually do the job of anybody that I was responsible for. Mm-hmm. And it took a while for them to teach me what I needed to know about leading. Okay, so that, it's painful to be in a situation where you have to admit, I don't know much of anything, but you can. I read a lot of books on leadership, and Leadership is an Art by Max De Pree is one of my favorites. And in there he said, the first responsibility of a leader is to define reality. Mm-hmm. And the last responsibility is to say thank you. And it will. And the other thing he said is, you should think of a leader as a bus driver. If you don't take people someplace they're interested in going, they're likely to get off the bus. Mm-hmm. So
that's a nice quote. Yeah. Yeah. So how did you find your added value other than your expertise then?
Well, it was a lot of asking questions and listening to the answers, and understanding what the group needed that I could provide. To go to bat for them with the rest of the organization and stand up for them, to ensure that all of the people in the group felt validated. I think that's the one thing I think that people want more than anything else, is to be validated. You can state it in lots of different ways, but for me, it all boils down to you have to validate people so that they have a sense of meaningfulness and purpose, that they know that their contributions are appreciated and actually making a difference. So I did really important things like emptying garbage cans and washing windows and giving back rubs and, whatever people needed. Go out and get dinner on weekends when we worked all the time. And
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah, learning, being able to learn or being prepared to learn as a leader is, I think this is relatively new now, that a leader can actually recognize, I need to learn from my people, and I'm willing to learn. I'm happy to learn, and I'm happy to listen. This is something that just works, but it takes courage. It takes courage as a leader, as Jean just said. It's not easy, but people will empathize with you. They will understand that you can't know what they're doing from day one, or you will maybe never know what they're doing, but you need to be there for the things they want you to do for them. And for some people, it might be on a technical level. For other people, they just want motivation. Other people want full autonomy. Just leave me alone. I can do my thing. Don't worry about me, and adapt to what your people's needs are. Absolutely.
Excellent.
I see the
Great.
value of the leader in actually being able to bring together the expertise of the experts that he or she is working with, and then pool that expertise to drive positive change, whether it's for a team or for the organization. Now, I personally believe that someone that is keen to admit that, he or she does not necessarily know everything about a specific aspect will be much more appreciated than someone that pretends everything and then can actually undermine the quality of the work that the team is doing because, they're trying to influence decisions and work that they have no clue about, where others can actually be much more trained or much better trained and in a better position to take certain decisions and to drive certain processes.
Absolutely. Great.
And to add to your point, the key is in the not knowing are the answers. In the not knowing, because in the space we are, as we are in evolution, as we are progressing, nobody has got all the answers. So actually in the not knowing, if we can honor that space,
Can I share with
take
you
as minding
the
answers.
Yeah, Claudia's frozen a little bit. Okay,
Yeah.
Jean, do you want to add something? Or Samir?
Yes, I'm raising my hand
Sorry.
to make sure I get
Yeah,
called
there's-
on. I was just going to say, Jean, I appreciate the question. And I'm oftentimes asked about like the power of relationships and then how much does your network matter? And the way I usually explain it is that, I usually ask an audience, like how many people have heard it's all about who you know, and many people raise their hand and say yes. It's like ability without opportunity is nothing. So you need to use your technical skills and knowledge in order to build relationships and show your expertise, but then use those relationships to learn from those people and grow and build more on the knowledge side and kind of keep using that cycle. So if you don't constantly add value to yourself and to other people, so it's kind of a balance. Knowing a bunch of people, well, you're not going to build deep relationships unless you have some sort of knowledge, expertise. But if you just have the knowledge, expertise, and you're not applying that to building relationships, then you're kind of stuck in, just being kind of a textbook per se, as opposed to someone who's connected. So I think the overlooked element is to continue learning and using that new knowledge then to find new people and then learning from those people. And I think that, that's one thing I've just tried to improve, but I think your question is a good one.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for joining us, Jean. It was great having you here. I'm looking forward because Jean will be one of our presenters or panelists in
Sure.
a next session. So it's great to have you already here. See you
Okay.
later. Bye.
Well, I didn't want to leave
See you,
yet.
Jean.
Oh, you didn't want to leave yet?
No.
Well, you can still
I would,
stay.
I would like to share with the group the most courageous thing I've ever done, at least from my
Okay.
perspective. And that is,
Please do.
is when I ended up responsible for this group of people that I didn't know how to do any of the things that they did. And after several months, I realized there were things going on that I didn't understand and I didn't know about, and they wouldn't tell me, okay, because they were afraid. So I called 5 managers into a conference room, and I said, I want the 5 of you to do a SWOT analysis of me. What am I doing that's helping? What am I doing that's not helping, that I should stop? What do I need to improve? All 4 categories. And I want you to put the answers on the board. And the ground rule is that when I come back, I will not debate any of the comments. I'm only allowed to ask questions to understand. And I left. Longest 30 minutes of my life.
Oh, yeah.
And when I went back, I learned a lot. And they learned a lot because they were talking to each other in a way that they normally don't talk to each other, by focusing on me. And the responses were reserved, and I sort of expected them to be, but I took what they created and I posted it on the wall next to my desk. And I worked on it. And 3 months later, we did the same thing, and they got more and more brutal, or honest, or however you want to look at it. And of the hundreds of people that I have explained this to a person, they have said, that's amazing. There is no other way that you can get at that kind of information. But I've only found one person with the courage to do it. So.
That's amazing.
Beautiful.
So now I can leave. Okay.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you so much for sharing that.
Thanks,
Jean. That
Jean.
was amazing. See you
Bye,
later.
Jean.
Bye. Yeah. Whoa, that was some story. I guess from somebody who was in the field and who was experiencing that his expertise was absolutely not sufficient to validate his leadership. So, what are your views? What are your comments on that story?
Well, very courageous for sure. But I think that, again, it's, I think it's not easy for people that have been in leadership roles to sort of adapt to this new evolving way of how we perceive leadership. But ultimately, it very well ties into to a very simple concept that just because you are a leader in a team or in an organization does not make you the god knowing everything and better than others. And if you yourself open up to review and criticism, if you open up to asking questions and admitting you don't know certain things, then you also create an environment in which the other team members feel they can ask questions. They can admit that maybe they are not an expert on something and then draw on the expertise of their colleagues, which ultimately benefits the whole team and the whole organization. And it helps those individuals to also admit that they maybe want to learn something new, or function in an environment that is changing, allowing them to adapt to different roles, to different environments without feeling that their self-worth is shattered and torn apart. But very inspiring story and really impressive, because I can only imagine, it really requires a lot of self-work to go through that process as well.
Yeah.
It's very encouraging, and what comes to mind is, we have all heard about Brené Brown, the power of vulnerability, and again, it's a new trait in that new economy. We have to learn to feel okay being vulnerable, because that's where we can actually learn. And I comment on, being as open as that in that context, because it's quite difficult in organization to open yourself up if this is not a value, so to say, if it's your, if you take it on yourself. So yes, but the power of vulnerability is a strength.
Absolutely.
And we mustn't forget that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Any other things?
No, I couldn't agree more. I've got nothing to add to that. But basically what I said before, you have to be able to, you have to be willing to learn. And that means showing your vulnerability. But I think most of the part of that motivates again others is eagerness to learn, not only willingness and say, okay, yeah, I'll do my best to learn. It's no, I really want to learn about how this is working, how this is adding value to you or to our customers, and making your interest in the topics that others know more about authentic.
Maybe just to build on that, because I think this is important as well to realize that the exercise that Jean has gone through only makes sense if you actually work on it afterwards, or you kind of, you take the comments and then you do something with it, which means essentially that there is a huge amount of self-work to be done. Because if the exercise is just to, ask the colleagues to do their job, to post the comments there, but then you just say, okay, thanks, but you sort of go on with business as usual, then it will definitely not increase your standing as a leader and your credibility. That ties in also to the power of vulnerability.
Helena, can I do an advocate of the devil topic?
Yes, of course.
Because I think we all agree, but I just want to do a reality check for a moment, and I also think that's what's happening to the lady you spoke about in your introduction, is that I think it's on a personal, for each leader, it takes courage to change the leadership model and to be more vulnerable and to be learning and to be supporting others. But sometimes your organization just does not allow you to lead in that way. Yeah. And this is reality. So far we have been talking about the best case scenarios, but the reality is not like that, especially in large corporations. If you do things differently as a director of a department, the others will look at you and say, hey, what are you doing? You're being different. You're breaking the rules of the game. So I think also this kind of leadership changes. Yeah, if it's a change for your company to lead this way, it has to be a group thing. It has to be something that is supported by the other leaders and by the CEO. If not, you'll be fighting a hard war just by yourself, and maybe you get the buy-in of your team. But if you don't get the buy-in of the rest in the company, if it's a large company, then it will not be sustainable. So just throw that into the discussion, if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
No, that's a very good point.
Yeah, I think it is a top-down exercise. If the top is not involved, or if the top is not sponsoring this, it's very, very difficult. Yeah, Anna, what's your experience?
What I wanted to say is that, what I've experienced also with some of my clients is that because change is now a very trendy topic, and every company, is thinking, oh, we need to go agile, we need to change this and that. What often happens is that there is a decision to change. And then there is a realization, oops, we actually have not done the work properly with our people, with our team, so that we have the buy-in from the teams and from the people in the organization, in the company. So I think I very much agree that it's a top-down exercise in terms of needing to have a strong buy-in in the top leadership. They need to be the champions of that initiative, but it has to be accompanied from day zero, essentially, not even day one, with groundwork, with employees and colleagues and teams on all levels. Because otherwise, what sometimes happens, especially in big companies where the tradition is that you have people that have been doing the same thing for 20 years, is that you have, boom, a big idea, but at a lower level, things continue as they have always been working, because the individuals don't really have the understanding of how they can actually jump on that new leadership concept.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it has to go hand in hand.
Yeah, Samir, you are a CEO. I'm convinced that you deal with these topics and that you have a view on it. So how do you do it in your organization?
Yeah, I even and I appreciate Nilofer's comment about title. Like, I resisted even taking on that title for I think 2 years. It was only recently because I think it was just more reflective of the responsibilities. So I would say first and foremost that, like, in our culture, every human being and everyone's like who they are generally does matter. So we kind of have a process at the beginning where people are encouraged to ask questions about everything, and we also involve them on very basic things. I'll give you an example. So there are 2 new young women that applied and they joined our team, and I wrote a script for a very short video that's marketing to young people specifically, like essentially just saying, like, this video can change the course of your life, and if you're looking for a place where you can gain experience, and I'll personally be your mentor, etc. So I just dropped the video script on a WhatsApp group that, like, we add new employees to, and I hate the word employee. Like, I call them, team members. And these 2 young women were so excited about it. Like, they first were like, the script is perfect, but if I had to add anything, like, I consider finishing on a quote. But later I found out that, like, the energy from just including them and making them feel involved, even though they've only been with us for maybe a month or so, like, pays its weight forward in their determination to contribute. So those same young women are deciding that, like, on Saturday night, they'd rather have fun, go to one of our offices or work remotely from their dorm than they would go out with their friends and go to a bar, because they're having more fun doing that. So I think that has to be from the top down. Otherwise it doesn't work. I also think, knowing from experience and having been in larger companies, like, a lot of people have assumed the title and they're not really looking to be difference makers or create a ton of value or change, and they don't have the skill set for it. They're not capable. And they're in many ways hiding behind that title. Like, they never thought they'd get this far. They're just happy to have that title and be at that point. And their whole mindset and their whole framework, which they themselves probably can't see, is around protecting that salary, that title, that opportunity, and making sure no one above them can be able to say, hey, like, this person isn't doing the right job. So by limiting ideas and change, you're exposed less, because naturally they wouldn't have the leadership or framework to implement those challenges. Like, I was very candid. I was part of an association and just kind of decided that, like, it was the law of diminishing returns. And the example I gave when I decided to resign is I said that, and I wrote this and I included every board member and, like, the key executives. I just said that, for an organization that has a staff of 40 people, you have 20 consultants on the payroll. And that just tells me that the leadership of this organization doesn't have the decisions. And, like, my time is so precious that, like, I can't fit anymore here. And I hope that there's changes in the future. So I hope that's helpful. But I think that, as human beings, and, like, when you're well-intentioned, like, you can spend days, weeks, months, years, like, complaining and being like, well, this person doesn't get it. Well, you choose to wake up and go to work every day in that organization, and you've got a choice to start looking elsewhere or to kind of remain in a place where you're not being heard. And the difference between the two is similar to the difference between night and day, life and death. It's everything. If you're in a place where you can learn and grow and develop skills versus one where, hey, don't ask any questions.
Mm. Absolutely. Thank you so much. Also, I love the comments that were put in the chat box by Nilufar. Thank you so much for your contribution. It's time to wrap up because we're on the 50 minutes. So what I would like to do, or what I would like to ask is from our panelists, very, very shortly, if you would like to give one advice to the audience in order how to make the first move to activate leadership, what would that be? In the meantime, I'm going to one last advice for the audience based on what was brought here. What would that be?
Well, it's basically based on my last comment. I would definitely recommend leaders who want to take on a new leadership role, which is more about enabling others and focusing on, as I said in the beginning, on being the guardian of the values and making sure that people grow in any ways, not just in knowledge, but also in other capabilities. Don't do it by yourself. Look for the support of your co-leaders. And do a group exercise, because you won't be able to manage it all just by yourself, unless you're all like-minded already and you're just finding it difficult, and seek help and make that change yourself. But normally, I would advise if you work on transformation, on change projects, on leadership level, to do it with the whole team.
Okay, thank you for that, Monique.
And I would like to impart three considerations. One, I'm also referring to my earlier comment: make vulnerability your friend, and appreciate and learn and acknowledge that not knowing is a space, an opportunity for knowing. And the third point I would like to suggest is have a deep interest in your own self-reflection, because that new space requires you as leader to show up in your full capacity, into your true authentic self. And in order to show up as that, you need to understand who you are being. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Thank you, Claudia. Great. Anna, your last advice?
Sure. So I wanted to mention as well to maybe start with a self-analysis and a certain examination of self-awareness of where we are in our preferences in terms of leadership and working style, our self-biases and self-limiting beliefs that we also have, because understanding that and doing that also in written form to really have this properly analyzed is key to then moving forward and being able to develop and grow and focus our energy on developing the skills that we will need to thrive.
Great. Thank you. Samir.
Well said. And, I think that when you are in a situation where maybe it's not ideal, like it's so easy to, kind of complain and criticize. And I think it was Dr. Benjamin Franklin, any fool can criticize, condemn, and complain. And most fools usually do. And then it kind of becomes this bad circle. Bigger. Best thing you can do is number one, is nobody can take that away from you. So like I've had people that have asked me, well, Samir, I this, and this, and I want to change. And I asked them, well, how much time do you spend watching TV? Like, what do you do on Friday and Saturday? But then you wake up Monday, Tuesday, and you're not happy. So where's all the time that people who have done things in this world and are successful and maybe happier and more fulfilled, how have they been spending their time, and compare it to yourself? One of the questions that I ask people, like in our questionnaire for young people, is like, what's the last book you've read? Like, I think it's kind of innovative to read books these days. Like, people don't want to read because it's just easier to like watch what other people are doing on their Facebook news feed. So I think that, books seem to teach us that all of our original thoughts are not so original. So I think finding books that are interesting, like the most basic one, The Speed of Trust, or How to Win Friends and Influence People. I've read it 4 times and I've reread it, and you constantly apply it. And there's a big difference, I think, between reading something and understanding it and then applying it. And I think that's the biggest way to make change in your life, is going from, kind of theory to practice. So I guess the line is, in theory, there's no difference between theory and practice. And in practice, there definitely is. There's going to be no better way than to invest in yourself. And that's going to attract other people and other opportunities to you.
Great. Thank you so much. Good. So I guess with this we come to wrapping up of our session today. And Samir, thank you for the bridge, because the first thing I want to present to you is the possibility to learn even more, because I'm inviting you for the next lab. That's on July 26th. It is about the perfection trap, and we have 4 great panelists again from all over the world. You should be able to see the information and the link. So if you just click the link, then another tab in your browser will open, and then you can just register for this. And you are, in the meantime, you are aware that even if you can't make it live, you can just register and receive the recordings afterwards.